What do you get when you launch 13.8 million microscopic eggs into the stratosphere, make them endure zero gravity, intense radiation, and then bring them back to Earth? Well, apparently this. It isn't sci-fi, it's the Aqua Dragons in Space kit. And today, I'm finding out if these ASTRO pets live up to their interstellar hype. We're going to try hatching and raising these animals, and I also have some little alien tank mates that I want to experiment with too. Now, back in 2017, Aqua Dragons launched a Kickstarter campaign with the hopes of raising $50,000 to help fund a project that had the goal of sending a meteorological balloon 40 kilometers up into the Earth's stratosphere. The 4 meter wide balloon was to carry a 2 kg payload containing millions of Aqua Dragon eggs. The plan was to send them up, film the whole thing, and then collect the eggs once they'd returned to Earth and sell them in these Aqua Dragons in Space kits. And the campaign was a complete success. They managed to raise a whopping $53,000, a little over their target, and the launch then went ahead as scheduled on the 17th of April 2017. I recently reached out to Aqua Dragons to let them know I was making this video and to ask if they could provide any footage to me to share with you guys, and they kindly sent over a whole bunch. Everything from inflating the balloon with a shitload of helium from a bunch of gas tanks to its eventual launch, which took place in Aragon in Spain. The Aqua Dragons then went on a journey lasting over 3 hours, 33 kilometers up into the stratosphere. Now, while this isn't technically beyond the boundary of what we consider space, it is still very high. To put it into perspective, 33 kilometers is over 3 times the altitude of a commercial airliner. These eggs have travelled higher than 99.9% of all human-made objects, experiencing low pressure, extreme cold, and huge amounts of solar and cosmic radiation. A couple hours into the flight, quite suddenly, the balloon spectacularly burst into hundreds of pieces, sending its payload tumbling in a free fall back down to Earth. A parachute then quickly deploys to slow it down, where it eventually falls gently into some empty farmland. I assume it must have been GPS tracked, as the eggs were quickly packaged up and put into these Aqua Dragons in Space hatching kits. Now, while I have this one here, there's also a second larger one on the shelf behind me, and also a third one which I don't have, but that one was just a starter kit which contained eggs, food, and a feeding spoon, while these other two also included a brand new Aqua Dragons tank. This smaller one is called the Live Astro Pets kit, and the larger one the Live Astro Pets Deluxe. The two tanks included in these kits are actually different from each other, so for today's video we're going to be unboxing, comparing, and reviewing both of them. Now, before we take a closer look at the packaging on these, I do want to mention where I think at least part of the inspiration for this whole project might have come from. In 1972, brine shrimp eggs were flown all the way to the moon on Apollo missions 16 and 17. Their purpose was to test the effects of radiation on biological life. Upon their return to Earth, the cysts were then hatched and compared to a control group that never took the cosmic journey. The results weren't great. 90% of the Artemia never made it to adulthood, many of them succumbing to deformities observed in their abdomen and swimming appendages. Hopefully the same thing doesn't happen to our Aqua Dragons, but we'll just have to wait and see. Aqua Dragons did also make a TV ad for this product, which I'll leave a link to down in the description, as well as links to the original Kickstarter page, and a video of Aqua Dragons founder Amy Holden giving some more information and insight into this project. Alright, let's finally check out the packaging. We'll just focus on the larger deluxe kit for now, as both are pretty similar. It's interesting to see that they've gone for quite a flat blister card style approach here, allowing this thing to both stand on a shelf or be hung on a store hook. I guess this decision was probably to reduce the packaging size, as boxes for these kits are usually a fair bit larger. We have the Aqua Dragons in Space logo up top, and a digital illustration of an Aqua Dragon astronaut. It is cool to see a little reference to the meteorological balloon behind him too, a nice connection to the project. Coming down we have a clear view of all the contents, which we'll take a detailed look at shortly. Over on the back, and there's a whole lot more info. Down here on the left is an explanation of the kit and the spaceflight project, as well as a mention of the caveat that while these eggs did go into the stratosphere, they didn't technically fly to space, so it's nice to see the transparency there. This is of course translated into French, Spanish and German to cover much of the huge market that Aqua Dragons products span. I love that they've included some microscopy photos of a Nauplius hatching as well. I know firsthand how difficult this can be to get the lighting right with these, and they've done a really nice job. Okay, let's open these up. While I've got a minute, I want to quickly remind you guys that if you're interested in supporting this channel, you can do so over on the picocosmos Patreon page. We have monthly giveaways and also some additional perks for paid members, such as early access to these YouTube videos, sneak peeks into behind the scenes of video production and product development, as well as access to a private Discord server where you can chat with me and other members in this community every day. Link is in the video description. Okay, so we'll start off first with the smaller ASTRO Pets kit. It comes with a spaceflight certificate of authenticity, which gives some details about the project and the signatures of those involved. There's also 2 other pieces of generic paperwork, but we've looked at these in other Aqua Dragon reviews, so we'll just skip over them for today. Next up, we have the only accessory for this kit, a feeding spoon. This one is a little different to the regular teal Aqua Dragon spoons, and that's because just like the tank, it glows in the dark. Pretty cool. Next up, we have the 2 packets, one containing the eggs and the other the Aqua Dragon food. Again, Aqua Dragons have gone above and beyond with the packaging of these, creating new chrome space themed pouches made specially just for these kits. Little touches like this really help with the immersion and just show that World Alive really do have a passion for these products. Strangely, the egg packet has a 2023 date printed on the back. I'm not sure if that's because this is simply when the pouch was manufactured, or if they've actually done additional balloon flights with more eggs recently. And next up we have the tank. Now, the packaging says that it's asteroid shaped, but come on, surely this thing was modelled off the moon, right? I mean, it's spherical, and it even has impact craters. For the purposes of this video, I will call it the asteroid tank from now on, but just know that I'm doing that a bit reluctantly. Its plastic feels nice and firm, so the quality is decent. There's a small water level fill line embossed into the plastic too, which is always a welcome feature, though I do usually prefer to see this hidden around the sides or back of the tank. The lid on top is secure, but can be removed easily, and you'll notice that the larger circular crater on top is actually a magnifying glass. Those of you who are regular watchers of my channel will know that I think magnifiers on these tanks are kinda pointless, but at least this one is out of the way. Next to it there's a convenient hole to make feeding and aeration a little easier. Coming down now to the rocky textured base, and this one flares out a fair bit, adding some more stability to the asteroid tank. Just like the spoon, this base glows in the dark, just as our moon appears illuminated even after the sun has set. A nice touch. I'll make sure we get a good look at this thing glowing later on in this video, once everything's set up and established. We'll move on now to the ASTRO Pets Deluxe kit. This one has everything of the previous kit, with of course a few extra features. There's a stick-on thermometer for keeping an eye on the temperature, as well as an air pump for aerating the tank. I've used one of these Aqua Dragon bubblers before, and let me tell you, it's my favourite one that I've ever used. This thing is robust, and simply a pleasure to pump with. Again, I'll give a proper tutorial later in this video. The last addition to the deluxe kit is the change to the asteroid tank. The body and lid of the tank here are the same, but the base now has 4 LED lights which are powered by 2 AAA batteries that go into the base. These batteries unfortunately aren't included with the kit, so I've gone ahead and put some in off camera to get it working. The LEDs are blue and give the feeling of some nice cosmic ambience, and while their main purpose is to illuminate your pets in the dark, they should also help algae to photosynthesize and grow, which is a welcome side effect. Now, before we set these tanks up, I want to take a quick look at the egg packet under the microscope. I'm curious to see if the effects of the radiation will somehow be visible on the cysts. And to my eyes, everything's looking pretty normal here. Basically, exactly what you'd expect with a regular Aqua Dragon egg packet. Alright, let's finally get these 2 tanks set up. You know, I've never really been a huge fan of round-shaped aquariums, not because I don't think they look nice, but because the distortion in the plastic makes it difficult to watch your pets. And the same is kinda true with this asteroid tank, especially with the addition of those impact craters. Don't get me wrong, I do really like the look of this tank, but it's just not the best design from a viewing experience perspective. It makes filming video footage of the Aqua Dragons more difficult too, but that's more of a me issue than something that's going to affect you guys. Strangely, the egg packet in the regular asteroid tank has turned a milky yellow colour here. That's not something I've seen when setting up an Aqua Dragon kit before, so I don't really know what's going on there. Hopefully it doesn't affect our hatch rate. The included bubbler tool from the deluxe kit is the perfect tool for dissolving those salt crystals, so I'm glad it was included in at least one of these kits. Despite the sun making this look warm, we are in the depths of winter here at the moment, which means I'll definitely be needing to use a heat source to keep these tanks in a comfortable temperature range. While a submersible aquarium heater would be the best option, it wouldn't look all that good in these small tanks, so I'm opting for a less effective, but nicer looking under-tank heat mat instead. I will be using airlines though, because I feel like the tubes kinda work well with the cosmic space theme, and even though it's not all that necessary right now, I will also use some grow lights to promote some algae growth, which will be really important given that it's quite chilly here at the moment. Now, at the start of this video, I did mention that we'll be adding some tank mates into these two asteroid aquariums, but I want to wait until these little guys have hatched first, so we can do that in the next update. So while we wait for our astro pets to hatch, I want to tell you about today's video sponsor, me. Well, I really just want to remind you guys that while the Picocosmos web store does sell aqua dragons, sea monkeys, and of course important tank accessories, I've also written a 37-page brine shrimp culturing guide ebook which goes into detail teaching you how to hatch and raise a colony of brine shrimp from eggs all the way to adulthood in a tank of any size you like. It's available now over at picocosmos.com. As always, there'll be a link to the web store down in the video description. Alright, back to the video. So here we are now one day later, and a bunch of the aqua dragons have now hatched. There's noticeably more babies in the deluxe tank on the right, which is probably on account of the water looking normal and not all gross and yellow. Honestly, I'm still unsure about what's actually going on in the other tank. It has a bunch of gunk at the bottom which doesn't dissolve no matter how much I mix it all up. The babies in there that have hatched seem fine for now though, so I'll just leave things be as they are and keep my fingers crossed. Okay, so now that our aqua dragons have hatched, I'm going to test out a new kind of tank made in their aquarium. A few months back, I visited a local rock pool to collect a bunch of rocks and gunk that I then put into a small glass tank, kinda just to see what animals I could find. And something interesting that emerged was an alien-looking species of marine flatworm, known as a planarian. It actually took me quite a while to identify what this animal was, because the type I have here is quite obscure and doesn't really look much like anything I could find in the literature. In fact, it's entirely possible that we're looking at a completely undescribed species. After talking to a few people who are knowledgeable on the subject to help me identify what it was, it seems like this animal is indeed a flatworm planarian. It's just a really strange looking one. Planaria are a group of animals in the subphylum Tricladidae, so they often get called triclads as well. Something else interesting about planarians is that unlike humans, they don't have a through gut. Instead, food is taken in through the mouth into a shared digestive cavity where cells directly engulf nutrients. Waste is then expelled back out through that same opening, much like a politician. I don't know how well these triclads will do cohabiting with brine shrimp though, especially at warm temperatures, so we'll have to wait and see how they get on over the next few weeks. It looks like we still have some aqua dragons in the process of hatching here too, so hopefully we end up with a decent sized colony. Hey guys, so I wasn't planning on updating you today, but the tank on the left has had a sudden die off, and after a bit of searching, I can't see any signs of life in there, other than some green gunk which just looks like algae that's been growing over the last few days. The water is noticeably cloudy too, which is likely the result of the bacterial bloom, so this is probably the cause of the sudden colony crash. I found a dead Nauplius at the bottom of the tank and put it under the microscope, just to check if it wasn't some strange developmental abnormality. And to me, everything looked pretty normal, so it's most likely from the bacteria. I've been keeping both of these tanks in identical conditions, so I can only assume that this has happened because of whatever was causing the yellow water when I set things up. Luckily, I do have a spare Astro Pets egg packet here, so I'm just going to start this one over again. Hopefully we have some better luck this time around, so I can give you guys a more positive update in a few weeks. It's looking like the colour of the water in this one is pretty normal so far, so that's a promising sign that we're back on track. While we're here, I will quickly show you how the other tank is getting on. These Astro Pets are doing pretty well, and as is usually the case with aqua dragons, it's really impressive seeing how many of these little guys have survived so far. Some good news is that their development is looking normal, at least for now. No obviously deformed appendages from all that radiation that they received on their cosmic voyage. We'll take another closer look at the adults in the final update though, just to make sure everything grew as it's supposed to. I also want to feed these Astro Pets today with their special Astro food. Here's a quick look at it under the microscope. I'm surprised to see that this stuff does actually look a little different to the other aqua dragon food I've seen in the past. This dark green powder is most likely dried spirulina, but there's not as much salt mixed into it as I expected. I'm not really sure why there's this variation between different aqua dragon food pouches, but here you go. I'll give you another update in a month or so when both tanks are fully mature. We'll get one final look at our alien looking planarians too, to see how they got on with their Astro aqua dragon tank mates. Alright, and here we finally are at the last update for the Aqua Dragons Astro Pets kits. It's been quite a while since I last showed you guys these tanks, a little over 2 months actually, but I'm happy to say that both aquariums are now full of happy adult aqua dragons, and the planarians too. The reason it's taken me so long to get these guys to full maturity is because we're still in the depths of winter, and despite me using the heat mat, these tanks have been quite cold these last few weeks, especially since my house is so poorly insulated and gets really cold at night. I can actually see my breath in front of me most mornings, so you can only imagine how the aqua dragons feel. Now, long-time watchers of the channel will know that the advice I usually give is to keep your tank around 24 to 28 degrees Celsius. That's because both brine shrimp and algae grow the fastest in this temperature range, and let's be honest, that's what most people are looking for. Aqua dragons that hatch and grow fast, mature sooner, and reproduce more quickly. But there's a hidden downside to this approach that I don't usually talk about. The extra heat speeds up their metabolism, which unfortunately also shortens their lifespan. You can kind of think of it like living life at double speed. In fact, shorter lifespans in warmer climates is something observed in most crustaceans, not just Artemia. So, while aqua dragons definitely do thrive in these warmer conditions, they can still survive in water that's quite a bit colder, as low as 10 degrees Celsius for short periods in my experience. Cooler water will slow down their metabolism significantly though, making their growth agonizingly slow. The main upside to this is that they typically live for quite a bit longer, but there's another benefit too. It also means that they'll be more compatible with cold-loving rock pool tank mates that you might have put into their aquarium. And on that note, I'm happy to say that the planaria are doing really well in both of these asteroid tanks, I'm sure in part due to the wintry weather we've been having. Now, something that I've recently learned about planarians, other than their lack of an anus, is that they're known for being able to regenerate missing body parts that have been entirely cut off. In fact, it's estimated that as little as 1/279th of the organism it is cut from can regenerate back into a complete organism over the course of a few weeks, which is both incredible and a little unnerving. Imagine cutting off someone's big toe and then the toe regenerates back into the entire person. F***ing gross, but also impressive. The last thing I'll mention are those white marks on their body. This unusual pattern is one of the reasons why I had so much trouble identifying them, as it's a feature typically seen on a different but very similar animal known as Hofstenia. The white markings come from concentrations of gland cells that produce and secrete mucus, helping them adhere to surfaces and also aid in movement, allowing them to slide about. At first glance, you might think planarians seem kinda gross, but really, they're quite interesting animals, and while they look comfortable for now, I assume they won't fare as well during the summer months, so I'm enjoying keeping these two species together while I can. We'll take a look now at the adult aqua dragons to see if there are any abnormalities that might have come from cosmic radiation. I'm not really expecting to spot anything here, mainly because I don't think they've received enough radiation to actually cause any issues, and also because any that survived through to adulthood are probably fine. And that's exactly what we're seeing with these mating adults here. Normal, healthy looking aqua dragons. I've also noticed some diatoms or brown algae growing in their tanks as well, which I've always found makes Artemia grow quite large, so these adults are pretty chunky. My experience with these asteroid tanks over the last few months has overall been a positive experience. Spherical tanks are never really my favourite because it does make viewing your pets more difficult, but these ones have definitely been growing on me. While the aqua dragons aren't always easy to see, the tank itself looks really nice, and would be right at home in a kid's bedroom. Speaking of which, I think it's time we have a look at how well these aqua dragons glow in the dark. Now I've noticed that the plastic doesn't glow particularly bright on these, so just using ambient light won't give you a super strong effect. To really see it properly, I need to blast it with a much stronger light source, and even then, it's not all that impressive. I mean, it does look better in person than what you're seeing on camera, but still, it's nothing to write home about. And lastly, we have the LED lights in the deluxe version. These do a really nice job of illuminating the tank, and all of the aqua dragons swimming inside. Again, I'd prefer this to be powered by an outlet rather than batteries, so that the lights could be basically left on permanently. But it's a nice feature regardless. If you're looking for a fun new tank to add to your collection, this isn't a bad option. I'd recommend getting the light up deluxe version over the regular one though, as the internal blue lights add a lot of value. But for those new to the hobby, the aqua dragons hatch and grow and underwater world kits are probably a better option when starting out. Alright, thanks for watching guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.